So that's the first part. Just on a technical level, on a basic logical level, not playing any word games, just looking at what it says. That's why I showed it to you, in case you missed it. And you can look it up yourself, because it's the United States Constitution. You can just Google the Constitution, you can read it. It's the same exact shit. But there's a bigger reason why I brought it up, okay? Brought it up because of this right here. The background, the influence of this bill, of this law, rather, is that between the years 1978 and 1993, there was an increase in the number of crimes committed against abortion providers and abortion clinics. According to statistics gathered by the National Abortion Federation, an organization of abortion providers since 1977 in the United States and Canada, there have been at least 9 murders, 17 attempted murders, 406 death threats, 179 incidents of assault or battery, and 5 kidnappings committed against abortion providers. In addition, since 1977 in the United States and Canada, property crimes committed against abortion providers have included 41 bombings, 175 arsons, 96 attempted bombings or arsons, 692 bomb threats, 1,990 incidents of trespassing, 1,400 incidents of vandalism, and 100 attacks with butyric acid, aka stink bombs. In April 1992, thousands of prayer warriors and anti-abortion protesters met the entrances of Buffalo abortion clinics for a planned month of picketing and blockades trying to dissuade women from ending their pregnancies. After 7 days of protests involving Operation Rescue, over 400 protesters were arrested. Okay, and then it goes on to say, one anti-abortion group known as the Army of God was especially active in committing these violent crimes. This group alone was responsible for bombing and setting fire to over 100 clinics before 1994. They also invaded more than 300 clinics and vandalized more than 400. In 1993, officials found the Army of God manual, a tactical guide to arson, chemical attacks, invasions, and bombing, buried in the backyard of Army of God activist Shelley Shannon's home. Shelley Shannon was soon found guilty of the attempted murder of Dr. George Tiller that same year. So this is the real reason I brought it up, and this is why I was, why I'm so very rude to anti-abortionists, because, okay, I understand that all anti-abortionists do not engage in these extreme of actions, but it is the mere fact that this is where y'all went. This is where y'all went. These super duper Christy Christians who have these super duper moral values that you supposedly have. And this is the type of behavior that many of y'all engage in. And then, and so, okay, this was in the past. This was the 90s. What about now? What about right now? What about today? My big thing about today is that anti-abortionists, again, do not care about the facts. If you ask them anything about who's getting into abortion, I'm not talking about just saying women, young women. I'm talking about literally the demographics, the facts, the data, the statistics, the information. I promise you they have none. They have done no research. They don't do research. If they did research, we wouldn't be here. Because my whole thing is, I'm all about data. Facts, information, statistics, things that cannot be debated, right? The only thing you can debate is, okay, maybe whether or not you question this group's methodology or what have you, but unless you have something better that you can present, you can shut the hell right on up. Straight like that. You can miss me with all of these super duper hyper cynical positions. I won't even say skeptical, because there's a difference between being skeptical and being cynical. Right? Being skeptical means you're just not going to accept things at face value. You have a high standard. The problem is that y'all, specifically anti-abortionists, don't have standards. The only standard is, I don't like abortion. Y'all think that y'all are going to legislate abortion away. That's not how it works. Even if you were to make abortion completely, totally illegal and make it a death penalty case, that's not going to stop abortions. It is inefficient and honestly, in my opinion, immoral way to try to curb abortions when you're not doing the hard work of trying to understand the people who get abortions and why they get the abortions. Okay? So check this out. And this is one of the big reasons why I have such a huge major problem with anti-abortionists, because these are very easy to find facts, data, and statistics, right? I just did it right now while we were talking. I literally typed it in while I was sitting here talking so that I could show you this type of shit, all right? So check it out. So it says right here, in the United States, the typical abortion patient is a woman in her 20s, unmarried, already a mother, and living below or near the federal poverty line. While people from all backgrounds seek this care, the Guttmacher Institute and Centers for Disease Control and Prevention highlight several key demographic trends. The majority, nearly 2/3 of abortion patients are in their 20s, roughly 33% are 20 to 24, 28% are 25 to 29. Minors, adolescents under 18 account for only about 2% of abortions. Race and ethnicity, diversity. Abortion patients are diverse, with similar proportions being Black, 29%, Latin, X, 30%, or non-Hispanic white, 30%. Disparities. Because of systemic healthcare inequalities and financial barriers, Black and Latin women experience disproportionately higher rates of abortion per capita compared to white women. So there's one issue right there, okay? So right out the gate, it says right here that because of systemic healthcare inequalities and financial barriers, Black and Latinx women experience disproportionately higher rates of abortion per capita compared to white women. I've never heard an anti-abortionist mention any of this because they don't care about any of this. They're so reactionary and don't care about the facts that all they want to do is just hate abortion. They don't want to look at the underlying causes of abortion so that they can address those things so that perhaps maybe they can help reduce abortion if that was really what they wanted to do. That's why I am so rude and condescending to anti-abortionists. Because, see, unlike y'all, I actually care about the facts and data. And actually, I actually am not the biggest fan of abortion either. I know, crazy, right? I'm not the biggest fan of abortion because I celebrate life. I think that life is precious. But what y'all don't seem to care about is actually valuing life in real life and ensuring that our quality of life is actually high quality so that people are disincentivized to get abortions. Because when we look at things like this, specifically right here, in socioeconomic status, approximately 41% of abortion patients have incomes below the federal poverty level, and another 30% make between 100% and 199% of the federal poverty level. So they barely hanging on. Low middle class. Insurance and costs. Financial constraints are a primary factor, with many reporting they cannot afford a baby. This is, to me, the big crux of why I'm super duper super rude and condescending to anti-abortionists. Because it always comes back to these underlying issues that right-wing conservatives do not want to hear at all. That they don't want to hear, they don't give a fuck about, and they act like they're so high and mighty, but they're full of shit. And that's why it's hard for me to contain myself in my anger and my condescension to these people. Because if I were to tell you, hey, if people weren't broke, if people weren't poor, half the abortions right now, y'all would be against that. Y'all would be against that because y'all love poverty. Y'all absolutely love poverty. That's why y'all do everything possible to ensure that people stay impoverished. That's why y'all do nothing, absolutely literally nothing, to even think about addressing the topic of poverty. Or if you do, you're going to blame the poor people for being poor instead of saying, hey, what can we do to help people not be poor so that they don't go to get abortions? If poverty is one of the, if not the primary factor, if poverty is literally the primary factor, why aren't a single of you anti-abortionists out in the street protesting against poverty right now? Right now. And this is the crazy thing. This is what us leftists have always been about. We have always been anti-poverty. But see, y'all are so out of your minds. You're so emotionally just blind to reality and facts. Y'all don't see that the thing that you claim you want is the same thing that we actually want. What the hell makes you think that we are so crazy that we're like, hey, everybody, you get an abortion, you get an abortion. Look, there's people out there that do think like that. And look, we can argue and debate whether or not we feel that that's optimal or not, right? And we can disagree. But the fact of the matter is that for y'all to claim that y'all care so much about anti-abortion, that y'all are so against that you're so against abortion, y'all don't look at the things that cause abortion. Y'all don't seem to be remotely concerned with the factors that lead women to get abortions. Y'all talk about every single thing but that. I have not seen on any conservative fucking platform at all any mention of any of these things. But y'all care so much about abortion, though. That is a lie. That is a lie. Y'all do not care about abortion at all. Y'all do not care about these babies. And then here's another point that I am so happy to bring up right now. Because, see, here's the even bigger point.